From this height, we could see, at a considerable distance below, yellow spots in the valley, which indicated that there was not much snow. One of these places we expected to reach tonight, and some time being required to bring up the gun, I went ahead with Mr. Fitzpatrick and a few men, leaving the camp to follow in charge of Mr. Preuss. We followed a trail down a hollow where the Indians had descended, the snow being so deep that we never came near the ground. But this only made our descent the easier, and when we reached a little affluent to the river at the bottom, we suddenly found ourselves in the presence of 8 or 10 Indians. The principal stream still running through an impracticable canyon, we ascended a very steep hill, which proved afterwards the last and fatal obstacle to our little howitzer, which was finally abandoned at this place. John C. Fremont, January 29th, 1844.
Well, today I'm out on the West Walker River, way out in eastern California, about 10 miles, 15 miles from the Nevada border. I'm out here on a little treasure hunting mission, looking for Fremont's lost cannon. In late January of 1844, him and his merry band of explorers were up in the hills somewhere up there, dragging a 12-pound howitzer in its cart behind a horse. The short of it is they had to leave it. They got stuck. And according to legend and lore, it's still there. And according to historians and other people, it's in a museum somewhere, perhaps even the Carson City Museum. I don't really care about that, because if you're really going to be a treasure hunter, you just got to believe that it's out there somewhere waiting for you. But really, it's the story that amazes me. I thought I'd tell it to you. So what do you say? Want to come along? Go find Fremont's lost cannon? I think we're going to find it. What do you think, Cricket? You think we're going to find it? Come on, Cricket. Let's go look for a cannon. I love this part of the country. It's out there. There's no major cities anywhere nearby. You know, Reno's a good hour and a half north, and that's not even that big of a city. It's just wild country. Bridgeport's an amazing, amazing place. Good staging ground for all sorts of outdoor activities. But the Sweetwater Mountains, where I'm going, I'll be right at the base of them, but man, the Sweetwaters, there's something else. It goes way up to something like 11,000 feet. You can drive right to the top of it in your Jeep if you want. So I'm not going to be giving away too much information about specific places, but all this stuff is easy to find online. I did. Ordered a couple of old books that basically tell you exactly where they think you should look, which is where I'm going.
Alright, I need to correct myself here. I will be showing very precise locations and lots of specific details. As I was making this, I thought long and hard about what I should reveal. I feel that keeping this story alive is more important than keeping secrets. However, this must be said. If you and your buddies decide to go looking for Fremont's lost cannon, understand there are risks involved. Be respectful of the land, the plants, and animals, obey the law, and understand the rules governing historical artifacts. Basically, don't make a mess of things, and if you find something of historical significance, leave it where you found it, mark the spot, take pictures, and then tell the Forest Service and go through the proper channels. This is the only way to ensure the story of the artifact is protected. Okay, onwards.
Let's head up into the mountains. And clearly somebody's grading this road because it is in great shape. Smooth. Smooth like butter. Back in 1844, you just imagine a group of explorers crossing this terrain on horseback. Definitely can see why they preferred this rather than going down into the deep canyon where it's all rocky and steep, especially when they're towing that howitzer. Anyway, the going theory is that they crossed up over these ridge lines, probably trying to stay on some of the south-facing areas where maybe there wasn't any snow, and they crossed along and went up over the other side and then dropped down into the West Walker River Canyon from there. Thank you for your service. Look at this buttery smooth road. You look around this country, it could be anywhere in here, anywhere. But you gotta put your thinking cap on. Where would they have got stuck? Where would they have left it? They've been dragging this thing around for a year. They had to leave it in a few spots temporarily and then go back and get it. But this is where they left it. And in the next few days after they left this region, they made their way up and over the Sierras in the middle of the winter. And that is a crazy story, which is great. It's one of my favorite stories of all time. But again, there's so little information from the explorers themselves. It's kind of anyone's guess. You got to do your own sleuth work. And then of course on top of that, you got to just come out here with the realization that there's a good chance they already found it. So as you're looking around, most of this country, there's nothing obvious where they'd get stuck. They'd stay up here. But as they descend down to get into the West Walker Canyon, which is coming up here, they had to go down some drainages. And that's the going theory, is they got stuck in one of these drainages going down and they couldn't get it out. And I think it's this one over here. So if I had to guess, they got down in there, tried to come back out. Somewhere along that hillside, there's a cannon and all its ammunition and gold, coins, and old pistols. I don't think any of that stuff, but it's the way to keep motivated. I mean, what's so crazy to think about is you look around and you just think it could be anywhere. There's a group that started, I think, in the 80s, maybe even 1980, and they were called the Fremont Cannon Recovery Team or something along those lines. And they came out here every year for weeks, a bunch of them, metal detecting and looking around. And they actually found part of the cannon. They actually found the carriage, the carriers. They found it in the creek. One of the biggest challenges anymore of looking for it is just how much sage there is. It's almost impossible, if you think about it, to do any sort of metal detecting or searching. Everything's just covered. Got another hour or so before the sun goes behind the mountains, so might as well just kind of do some looky-looing. I can see getting a cannon stuck down there. Ooh, doggy. So here's the other thought. They got stuck, but maybe they couldn't move it forward, but maybe they moved it backward and they buried it. You know, this was a valuable piece of military equipment back in the day. Not sure they would just leave it, just sitting out in the open. Oh, it smells good. It smells like rain. Now, what I just came down, if the top of that creek is way up the mountain and it gets really steep and comes down. There's no way, in my mind, that they would have made it down there. They wouldn't even have tried. Here, cannon, cannon, cannon. Although all this area looks really interesting. Really tough to say where to start. I guess just stick with the information I have and go from there. So do you think they would have taken the cannon off and just left the cannon and then tried dragging the cart out? Or do you think they just leave the whole thing together? Probably the whole thing together. I don't know though. Come on, you gotta check out this campground. This might be where I call it. It's too good to pass up. Can wander around a little bit. Follow this old road.
After I'd settled into camp, I decided to take a little stroll through the woods. I looked at the map and realized I was near Mount 6926, which was shown on a map in one of the reports as a possible place where Fremont and his men may have gone down to the West Walker River.
Found my first relic. The old Coors can. It's from a simpler time, long ago, before cell phones. I'm not gonna get lost. I've got GPS. Well, famous last words, right? We got a little bedding area, perhaps. If I was a deer, I would sleep right here too. Looks like bear scat to me. Always be on the lookout for tracks, any sort of sign that you're not alone. It's always good to talk to yourself too. Not only does it keep yourself company, but let the critters know you're coming. They don't want to deal with you. Bear scat, bear scat, bear scat. Rabbit poop. PVC pipe. Makes for a good walking stick, but what in the world is PVC doing up here?
I didn't find much on my hike to Mount 6926.
Maybe with somebody else's walking stick.
But I did find an old survey marker that makes for a good walking stick.
Found my way back to camp. All right.
I settled into my camper for the night and pulled out all of the research documents I'd brought along.
I got books, I got maps.
Some papers I'd found online, a few old books, some maps, and of course, a copy of Fremont's 1845 report to Congress. I decided to look everything over in anticipation of my exploration tomorrow.
So the first thing I'm going to read is from the California Historical Society Quarterly, December 1957, Volume 36, Number 4. Fremont's Cannon. Conflicting stories have arisen
as to the subsequent history of the Fremont howitzer. It was said to have been discovered in 1859 by two miners in the place where Fremont's party had left it some 15 years before. Another story says that during the Civil War, it was impounded by the government as U.S. property. One hears of it as having been in private hands again, to be followed by Virginia City, Nevada, as its next claimed resting place. In succession came Lake Tahoe, where it is said to have been given chances to speak for itself during patriotic and other celebrations. Controversy, sometimes heated and persistent, occupied the next several years, leading at last to a final solution with respect to its whereabouts, namely in Carson City. Cannonballs do not figure in any of the discovery and salvage stories relating to Fremont's howitzer.
So that's one thing that's interesting. Nobody does talk about what happened to the 500 pounds of ammunition. And probably I think it's the only drawing from the report that Fremont gave to Congress is this image at Pyramid Lake that shows the cannon.
According to retired Army historian Colonel Paul Rosewitz, the cannon in this image was either drawn incorrectly by cartographer Charles Preuss or added afterwards by the lithographer, because the cannon depicted here has dolphins, which are the hooped handles on the top. Fremont's M1835 model did not have dolphins. Also, although it is often called a brass cannon, Colonel Rosewitz makes it clear that all of the M1835 12-pound mountain howitzers produced were cast in bronze. Apparently, it was commonly called brass. So when I say brass, I should be saying bronze.
From the report of the exploring expedition to the Rocky Mountains in the year 1842 and to the Oregon and North California in the years 1843-44. January 29th, 1844. From this height we could see, at a considerable distance below, yellow spots in the valley, which indicated that there was not much snow.
One of these places we expected to reach tonight, and some time being required to bring up the gun, I went ahead with Mr. Fitzpatrick and a few men, leaving the camp to follow, in charge of Mr. Preuss. We followed a trail down a hollow where the Indians had descended, the snow being so deep that we never came near the ground. But this only made our descent the easier, and when we reached a little affluent to the river at the bottom, we suddenly found ourselves in the presence of 8 or 10 Indians. They seemed to be watching our motions, and like the others at first were indisposed to let us approach, ranging themselves like birds on a fallen log on the hillside above our heads, where, being out of reach, they thought themselves safe. Our friendly demeanor reconciled them. They immediately stretched out to us handfuls of pine nuts, which seemed an exercise in hospitality. We made them a few presents, and telling us that their village was a few miles below, they went on to let their people know what we were. The principal stream still running through an impracticable canyon, we ascended a very steep hill, which proved afterwards the last and fatal obstacle to our little howitzer, which was finally abandoned at this place. The other division of the party did not come in tonight, but encamped in the upper meadow and arrived the next morning. They had not succeeded in getting the howitzer beyond the place mentioned, and where it had been left by Mr. Preuss in obedience to my orders, and in anticipation of the snowbanks and snowfields still ahead, foreseeing the inevitable detention to which it would be subject us, I reluctantly determined to leave it there for the time. And that is it. That's all that Fremont says, and that's the only time he mentions where he left it. So as any good treasure hunt goes, we just have a couple little tiny clues. But many, many, many people have pursued this little howitzer. This is by Jack L. Reveal. We propose that Fremont's men abandon his 12-pound howitzer in a cache near the base of a steep hill on a short distance north of Cottonwood Meadow along Cottonwood Creek. We believe the little affluent Fremont mentions is Cottonwood Creek. It is unlikely they would have abandoned such a weapon to an unknown fate. And with the party were mountain men skilled at concealing bales of fur, traps, and other equipment. Because Fremont states, I reluctantly determined to leave it there for the time, it is reasonable to speculate that the howitzer was disassembled and, along with its ammunition, safely cached. Perhaps the howitzer was found by an Indian who moved it elsewhere or even destroyed it, as local legend tells. However, some of the 500 pounds of ammunition ought to be in the area of the original cache, and likely might be discovered by a careful, and we must add, legal search. That is the end of that report.
I didn't read any excerpts from Ernest Allen Lewis's 1981 book titled High Up and Far Back. In the book, Lewis proposes some very specific, if not overly assumptive, ideas on where Fremont's party left the cannon. I'll quickly summarize Lewis's theory. After a long struggle to get the cannon up the south face of Mount 8422 on January 28th, Fremont ordered his men to abandon the cannon somewhere near the top on the 29th. They then descended down an unnamed drainage to the West Walker River. At the time, I didn't put much stock in Lewis's narrative, because I felt that Jack Reveal's paper made a compelling countercase for Cottonwood Creek.
So I'm roughly right here. So here's Devil's Gate, Vales Hot Springs. Here's the route that that Lewis suggests up to Mount 8422, and here's the route that Reveal suggests going down, leaving the cannon here in Cottonwood Creek. I'm of the opinion that Jack L. Reveal knows what he's talking about. And that's why I'm focusing my search in the area that he thinks the cannon was abandoned, which is along Cottonwood Creek. So we have Cottonwood Creek Meadows, that goes down Cottonwood and to Deep Creek. This map is from 1974, so pretty old. But the roads are probably pretty close to the same. You can see here, so here's the West Walker River flowing down. Here's the Bircham Flat Road. Here's where the excavators were parked earlier today. And I drove down here, drove up this road a little bit, turned around, and I went down to where Deep Creek enters and crosses the road. And then I turned around and I am camped right here tonight. So this is the slope here, this steep slope where this Jack Reveal thinks that they abandoned the cannon. This is really steep, covered in sagebrush, so it's going to be tough going. Not sure what I'm going to be able to see, but you know, at the end of the day, I'm just out here telling a story, looking for some lost treasure. I don't expect to find anything because, well, for one, it might already have been found, but according to these guys, it hasn't been. It was cached and has been covered by 180 years of sloughing. So I think the real trick is, instead of necessarily looking for the cannon itself, it's to look for the ammunition cache. The camp on the 28th is a tricky one. That's back a ways. While this was being done, Fremont, Fitzpatrick, and a few men left the camp and followed a trail down a hollow where the Indians had descended. Let's go to the book. Tonight, we did not succeed in getting the howitzer into camp. This was the most laborious day we had passed through. The steep ascents and deep snow exhausting both men and animals. They didn't even get the howitzer into the camp on the 28th. Well, that kind of changes everything. Well, I don't know what to make of that. Time to look at the map again. I don't know why they would have ever gone down Cottonwood Creek. They camped up here somewhere on the 28th, and on the 29th they were down at the river, so that passage somewhere in between here, somewhere in there is where the cannon disappeared.
Well, had a nice sleep, getting ready for the day. Decided first things first, I had to poke around the campsite with my little Equinox 800. Already found a bullet. Treasure. Probably another spent round, bottle cap, piece of junk, or maybe not. See, this is what this is what's typical. 9mm. So there's something bugging me from last night, and it's where they camped on the 28th, overlooking the whole area. And why they would go down Cottonwood Creek is beyond me. It doesn't necessarily make any sense. Obviously, snow was the main issue, but you can see it's a tight canyon from any of the vantage points up where people think, where Reveal thinks that they camped. Why would you go down Cottonwood Creek? I don't even think you would attempt it. It had to be covered in snow. There's no way that that was free of snow. They said you could stay up on the sides, but it's very steep. They would have seen that right away. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm gonna go up to where I think they camped and take a look. And from their vantage point, look down and say, hey, would I go down there? Let's go check it out. Rattled at me a little bit. Now that I've seen a rattlesnake, I probably should put some boots on, huh? Probably a smart thing to do. What do you think, Cricket? Yeah. Let's go back to Fremont's journal and see what he says. From this height, and this is on January 29th, so the next morning from camp, I assume. From this height, we could see at a considerable distance below yellow spots in the valley, which indicated that there was not much snow. One of these places we expected to reach tonight. My question is, from this area, you can't see the Antelope Valley. So the question would be, where would they have camped that they could see the valley? Now, up there, maybe. This is the mountain that Lewis thinks they might have camped in a saddle, maybe there, or even up there, because that would allow them to see down into the valley, because the mountains here block that. But if you were to hike up, climb up all this was all north-facing slopes. This would have been covered in snow. So they would have had to go up the ridge, but he would have mentioned that. He would have said we went to the tallest peak in the area, but they didn't. He did say they got to a high point. I guess that is a high point. Seems silly to camp up there, though. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't camp up there in January. I'd want to be down a little bit, protected. It is possible that Fremont and Fitzpatrick may have just climbed up to get a view, and that's what he wrote about, instead of seeing it actually from the camp. And that's fine, but from up there, when I'm looking down, and I look down Cottonwood Creek, which then meets with Deep Creek, I would never, ever go down that. You can just see, just by looking at it, that it's a very steep canyon, steep, narrow canyon. That's not something I would do. And there's even more obvious routes down. Now again, I'm not here in the middle of the winter. I don't know what the snow was, but Cottonwood Creek doesn't make sense anymore. Sorry. Sorry, reveal. From that vantage point, I wouldn't go down there with a bunch of horses towing a cannon if I didn't have to. And it didn't look like they had to. So Cottonwood Meadows, here's Cottonwood Creek. It goes down, Deep Creek meets with it. This is where I think they got into trouble. They went down into this canyon, down these contour lines here, tried to make it either up and over or down the creek, and they realized it was just pointless. And they couldn't go back, and they couldn't go up, so they ditched it. All right, let's go explore it. All right, this is where I think, if I had to guess, the trail that the natives took them on led them into a hollow. This would make sense. A hollowed out spot in the mountains. Finally decided on a spot. I'm gonna hike down the canyon towards the West Walker River. Time to just wander. So I'm coming to a part of the canyon here where it gets real tight and overgrown. It opens up a little bit down there again. I'm gonna keep pushing through, see if I can get down there. But this could easily have been a spot where they said, "Nah, we're not gonna go any further. This is too much." And if it were me, I would then drag it back to the flat spot back there and cache it properly, which means bury it, so you can come back and get it later and it hasn't been stolen or messed with. Yeah, this is a game of luck, a game of chance right here. Keep your eyes peeled. Just look for little clues. Not even necessarily looking for a brass cannon. I'm in these wild raspberry bushes. They are nasty. That's why I got my gaiters on. Bushwhacking's an art form. Ow. This is all just wild raspberries. I think it's raspberries. I see a couple little guys on there. Not quite grown. There's a little animal trail that pokes through here. Probably a bear. Got my bear spray. Who would have thought my PVC pipe from last night would come in so handy? Not me. Signs of human life right there. Seen quite a few fence posts, markers of other sorts. Gotta imagine the water flows through this canyon quite substantially in some storms and some snow years. You know, too, it's been 180 years. It could be right under those trees right there. But can't let yourself get down with thoughts like that now, huh? Well, there's a car door. It's the right color. Where's the rest of it? Road's up there. See, now this is what I like. This tree right here. This tree is definitely 180 years old. Now, what is it about animals dying under trees? Look at this guy. Find more animal bones under trees. That's probably a cow. I don't know that, but it's pretty big, so could be a bear. Bear bones are better than bears. This is exactly where I would bury my cannon. In fact, I'd bury it right under this jawbone right here. Do cows have sharp teeth? Found signs of life. An old beer can. I don't like going through these thorn bushes. These raspberry patches. I don't like it. That's why looking for this thing is so hard. That's why it's hard to believe anybody found it. Ow! It could have been 10 years after the fact. 1854. That thing was gone with no trace. Raspberries. Whenever the going gets rough, I'm gonna say raspberries. Yeah, this is an old trail right here. Very old. Makes you think, what if this was a Native American trail? Thousands of years old. Yeah, this is definitely an old road right here. I like it. Look at that. PVC's coming in handy. This would be tricky with a cannon. Found some more human activity. The infamous black pipe. It's not carrying water anymore, that's for sure. That looks like teeth marks, look at that. Chomp, 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 chomp. Where does that go? Why in the world are they dragging a pipe? Oh, look at that. Trash. Interesting. This is definitely a cache here. Tarp, buckets. Ooh. It's been a while since someone's been here. Tarps and buckets. Wondering if this was an old cannabis farm. Somebody was living up here. Interesting. Oh yeah, check this out. That's still full. True temper. That's a real shovel right there. stuff up here. Buckets, pots. It's not always the best feeling when you find abandoned things in the middle of nowhere. Lucky for me, it does seem that this is very old. I mean, it could be a decade. You know how plastic goes. Everything's buried. There's some new trees kind of poking up through what looks like maybe this was a campsite. And there's all sorts of new aspens and growth in here. This is interesting. Little beaver skull here. Did they eat a beaver? Pot. Well, what they were doing is anybody's question, right? And the better question is why'd they just leave all this stuff here? Oh, look at that. It's their camp. The camp stove. Another decent shovel. So they were digging. Twine. Well, they were digging. Staying up here. Maybe they knew something that I don't. You know how in video games you upgrade your tool when you're on a quest? I think I'm gonna upgrade my tool on this quest. All right, that Pepsi can is not that old. I'll show you. See if we can judge the age of this camp by this guy. Sleeping bag. Gas. Cliffy, rocky, steep. Made it all the way down the creek, down to the West Walker River. Not a hard hike at all, just bushwhacking a little bit, following an old road. Get back to the car. Gather my thoughts. Keep my eye out for brass howitzers, ammunition balls.
On my hike back to the truck, I had a lot to think about. As was expected, I didn't find anything relating to Fremont's cannon.
And I made it.
But this was just the beginning of my journey, and walking down Deep Creek to the West Walker River was exactly what I needed to do. This hike will forever be my foundation for visualizing the story, and to experience the landscape, which in turn helps me better understand the textual clues of this fascinating part of history. Hollows, steep ascents, little affluents, principal streams, and impracticable canyons. Why did Fremont choose the words he wrote? And to which features in the landscape did these words refer to? And after 182 years, is it still possible to connect the words to these specific features? When you're out here, walking the pathless creeks and sage-covered hills, you become connected to those who came before.
As if through some ancient collective human experience, you begin to imagine that you think like them, understanding their actions, motivations, and decisions, choosing the same pathways that they would have chosen, just as they followed pathways of those who came before them. Whether the cannon is in a museum or still lies buried in a creek is almost irrelevant. It doesn't affect my interest in this story or my efforts. Searching for Fremont's path, determining where they may have camped, and imagining where they finally abandoned their little howitzer. There are so many fun, subtle, interesting, and yet contradicting clues, which is what makes this treasure hunt extremely challenging. And as I see it, the only way to solve this 180-year-old puzzle is to come out here, explore the hills and creeks, until you find an answer that satisfies you. And if you do settle on a theory, there may just be something hidden there, buried in the dirt or just under the water, waiting to be discovered. And that is an enticing enough prospect for me to wander through these rugged mountains, enjoying the sunshine and fresh air, smelling the pines and sweet roses, and imagining what it was like for those men all those years ago. This little adventure was just a starting place for me, and over the next year, I dug in deep. I gathered more information, found countless newspaper articles, old stories, and other theories. But most importantly, I returned many times to continue my search.
Oh man, you see that tree there?
I waded the West Walker River.
If I find anything, I'm gonna leave it where I found it.
Searched up and down Deep Creek.
I didn't notice this the first time through, but
and learned that I had unknowingly wandered through the abandoned archaeological dig site.
So I'm back inside the perimeter of the old archaeological dig,
where the Fremont howitzer recovery team found the 3 iron wheels and trunnion plate so many years ago.
As far as I know, there was an official archaeologist with them. All right, Mike found a spoon.
And the abandoned camp I found was most likely related to that project.
Like a dog collar. Let's see, what was your name, buddy? Which was finally abandoned at this place. This place, they say. Do you think it's this place? All right, who was out here on Deep Creek? Lost a Timex. I got it for you. Look at that. Probably from 1975.
I did find a few things.
That's quite the chain.
But aside from the shovel, I took only pictures and some trash.
Some trash I do pick up. Oh, it's Bluey. I mean, holy cannoli.
I bushwhacked so many miles.
But this is so steep.
And climbed so many steep ascents.
Hill 8422 right there.
And I hiked to the top of Mount 8422 with neighbor Mike in the middle of winter.
If they camped up here, this would be a good spot to do it. In fact, it's the only spot that makes sense to me.
Forever altering my opinion on Ernest Lewis's theory.
That looks like a very easy, fun way down, which I'm glad we found.
What I discovered was my own story, with my own theories of Fremont's path and what I think happened out there on the 29th of January, 1844, and where I think they abandoned the cannon. But for now, this is the end of my little adventure.
I'm in a different mountain range now.
Thanks for coming along, and I hope to see you out there.